All right, let's get your calls about former President Donald Trump being in Manhattan today to turn himself in for what we have yet to see are the full accounting of all of the charges against him, but it's believed to stem from hush money payments he allegedly made to Stormy Daniels, of all people. But I want to hear from you about your thoughts on all of this. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. The Independent has a live stream right now. It's just pointed at the federal courthouse. And, of course, you've got a lot of people that are turning out, and police are on the streets in Manhattan. And it's going to be interesting to see what ultimately happens here, especially as the president turns himself in. It's expected to happen sometime around, 10 o'clock our time. So you'll likely hear a lot about that on ABC News throughout. But here are just some of the headlines in the latest. Judge presiding over Trump's arraignment bars video from being in the courtroom. So the former president's indictment is not going to be televised. And that's something I think a lot of people are hoping to see. Maybe have a camera trained in on the former president to see his face as the charges are read out. But no cameras are going to be in the courtroom this morning. Also, another headline here, Trump attorney announces plans to file motions to dismiss, alleging prosecutorial misconduct. This is coming from the Epic Times. They say the lawyer defending former President Donald Trump against the district attorney there, Alvin Bragg's hush money case, announced late Monday his plans to file a host of motions to dismiss, including one based on prosecutorial misconduct and selective prosecution. Goes on to say that there will be a host of motions we're going to make, including a motion to dismiss based on selective prosecution and prosecutorial misconduct. Trump's arraignment set for 2:15 this afternoon Eastern time, so that would be 1:15 our time, and then you've got charges expected to be revealed during the indictment because we don't know what the charges are. Right, we've heard it's all around this hush money payment case, and we have yet to see what could be 30-plus charges against the former president. This is, of course, an unprecedented situation. Never have we had a former president of the United States charged or have to show up in a courtroom to, face charges and have to go through the arraignment process of getting a mugshot and so on. But the announcement revealed the first move by Trump's defense to file a slew of motions in this case where Bragg's looking to have charges brought forward against Trump for $130,000 alleged payments to Stormy Daniels. Here's another headline. Trump accuses Manhattan DA of illegally leaking indictment ahead of arraignment of the former president. This story from the Epic Times talks about, Trump being indicted by a grand jury, becoming the first ever U.S. president to be criminally charged. The indictment against Trump was confirmed late last month. It's under seal. You've got Trump saying on his social media platform, wow, District Attorney Bragg just illegally leaked the various points and complete information on the pathetic indictment against me, Trump said. He said, I know the reporter, and so unfortunately does he. This means that he must be immediately indicted, Trump said. Now, if he wants to really clean up his reputation, he will do the honorable thing as district attorney, indict himself, he says. Indict himself. Trump urges Bragg to do. He'll go down in judicial history, and his Trump-hating wife will be, I am sure, very proud of him. So again, DA Bragg just illegally leaked the 33 points of indictment, Trump says. There are no charges or surprises from those he leaked days ago directly to the grand jury. No crime by Trump. What a mess. Bragg should resign now, Trump said. So Trump continues on with his social media platform and sharing his voice that way. But there's another twist here, and that's whether or not Trump is going to be told that he can't speak about this case. So I guess that's another question for you. Should the president challenge, if he has a gag order issued against him, should he challenge that gag order? Typically, from what I'm understanding, is gag orders are really meant to keep prosecutors from talking about certain things of a case, especially if it's going to possibly influence a jury. But, you've got this idea of the judge possibly gagging the former president for what could happen here. And how will that impact the former president's ability to speak on the campaign trail? Because that's something else. This is not just some former guy who's a hermit now and he's not involved in politics anymore. Trump is running again. He's a candidate for the GOP nomination, and he's considered the leading candidate, leading all the polls. So, it's fascinating to see all of this. I would love to hear your thoughts at 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Let's go ahead and get to the phones. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, good morning, Greg.
Hey.
It's hard to have anything positive to say about this thing. I mean, it makes us look like a banana republic. It kind of reminds me of the situation when the Democrats got control of the Senate and they got rid of the filibuster to get their judges appointed because they didn't have enough votes. And the Republicans, and for that matter, a lot of people said at that time, you're going to live to regret this motion. This was back, around 2010 or something like that. And sure enough, the Democrats did live to regret that motion because when Trump was in, he appointed 3 justices, that didn't get 60 votes either. So I think this is going to be something where the Democrats are going to come to regret this because, frankly, given the complexity of the campaign finance rules, any of these guys could be guilty of anything at any time. As I recall, Obama was obviously never charged, but Obama had millions of dollars in campaign finance irregularities, which they then filled out the forms and everybody went about their business. But the point is, you got a politically motivated DA in the wrong jurisdiction. And I guess my point is, why wouldn't Trump ask for a change of venue? I mean, does anybody really think he's going to get a fair trial in New York?
And that's another question.
Like
you got the prospect of a gag order. You've got the prospect of motioning to have this tossed. You've got the prospect of motioning to have a change of venue. All of these things very possible. Appreciate your insight on this. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. We'll get to more of your calls coming up here. Again, you can call in at 217-629-7970 here on WMAY. Your thoughts about the former president preparing to turn himself in to a court in Manhattan. So stay tuned. We'll get to that with your calls more on the way. It is WMX. Let's get a quick call here before the break. Good morning. You're on WMAY. You would have been. Let's go ahead and take that. Continuing with your calls at 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here on WMAY, where a texter calls in and says that this is another example of weaponized legal action. And I think that's something you're hearing a lot of, the concern that you have the criminal justice system being weaponized for politics. And it's hard to say that's not the case when for, 7 years now, we've just been hearing nonstop, get Trump, get Trump, get Trump, get Trump. Let's go ahead and get to the phones, 217-629-7970. Good morning, you're on WMAY.
Good morning. I have to agree. I think the caller you had before the break, he had some pretty valid points about campaign finances are complicated, and I think there's irregularities in most. I would like to see them release all of the documents and make this whole trial very, very public, much like the O.J. Simpson trial or something, because this is such a big deal. I mean, this is not a little big deal, They should televise every part of this. There should be no secrets held back.
Well, and they mostly are. Yesterday, how many cameras were there trained on, the plane taking off, the plane landing, Trump coming out of the...
You said earlier, though, that the judge wasn't going to allow cameras in the courtroom.
Right.
And I think that's wrong. I think they need to... there needs to be no secrets on this. If you're gonna prosecute a former president of the United States, it needs to be in the public eye and open for everyone to watch if they choose to watch. And then two other points, and I'll leave you alone. Gag order, I think it's definitely going to happen because I see that as a trap that I call them bear traps. They lay him out there and just wait for him to fall in them because he will say something to break that gag order during one of his rallies. I promise you that. Yeah. That's him. And then the last thing, I'd love to see him show up for his mugshot with fake tattoos like Post Malone on his face and a big heart with "I love mom" on his arm and a wife beater on for his mugshot. I think that would be epic because this is all a farce in my opinion.
Appreciate the call, and we'll take more of them. 217-629-7970 on this historic day, a day that this country's never seen before. A former president having to show up in court to face state-level challenges, alleging a felony, 33 counts apparently, and we'll hear a lot more about all those counts and what other types of motions are going to be made. It's already being reported the judge is denying cameras in the courtroom. You've also got the possibility of a gag order being issued against the former president, which you got to think about. What does that mean for his campaigning? He loves to rally. He's already talked about this at one large rally. Is he going to be prevented from talking about this? Is that gag order going to be good for the media? Is CNN going to have a gag order issued against them to keep them from talking about this ad nauseum, or Fox News for that matter? So it's interesting to see if a gag order is issued, if there's going to be an appeal of that, what the legal process is. I think a lot of people are going to get a pretty rapid lesson in how the court system works when it comes to criminal court, because I would venture to say a lot of you out there have not had to deal with criminal court before. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Well, good morning, Greg. I was watching it was Fox News, of course, but and it was just laying out this scenarios of the gag order, and then also they was talking about how this indictment, how it was leaked to the CNN or whoever, and which apparently that's a felony in itself to leak, sealed indictments or whatever you call them. But they was talking about the gag order that it would be election interference because there's going to be, I guess, debates coming up soon, because he's obviously running for president. And if he gets questioned about this, in these, question and answer sessions, it would stop him from, comment, answering questions, and that's kind of like the process when you're, running for president. You have to be able to speak about different things.
Well, but I don't know. I mean, the former campaign kind of showed that you don't necessarily have to speak about things. You can stay in a basement and not have, regular Q&As with the press in order to get your message across. Apparently, you don't have to do that anymore. So maybe Trump can just stay in the basement. Who knows?
Well, it'd be more like a tower, an ivory tower somewhere with gold toilets and whatnot, because he is exceptionally rich man that likes gold toilets.
Yeah, he does. I appreciate the call. Take another one here before the break. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY. Your thoughts about this whole saga?
Morning, Bishop. I'd just like to read word for word Biden's quote from yesterday or the day before regarding this. I'll say it real quick. Well, we just have to demonstrate that he will not take power by if he does run. I'm making sure he, under legitimate efforts of our Constitution, does not become our next president again.
We did air that yesterday, and that was actually from, I think, November of last year. It wasn't yesterday when that video was out. Actually, the most recent comments that Biden gave was no comment. But that quote is a quote that the president gave back in November of last year after Trump announced that he was running. So it's a legitimate quote, but it's not from yesterday. It's from a few months ago. But it does highlight at least what President Biden thought about the whole ordeal, right? No, I appreciate the call. 217-629-7970 is the phone number. What's going to happen today? Jeez, what is going to happen today? Again, a lot of different ins and outs here. You've got Trump accusing the Manhattan DA of illegally leaking the crimes, 34 felonies. Trump to be charged. He's not going to have to be handcuffed. apparently the mugshots could or could not happen. He's going to be arraigned, hearing all the charges. People are also pointing out, what about the Hillary Clinton money for the Steele dossier? I mean, she had to pay a fine for that. She just had to pay a fine for that. That dossier about, Trump with ladies of the night over in Russia and Russia colluding with Trump, all of that was nonsense and was used by the intelligence agencies through the Clinton surrogates to spy on Trump. Where's the criminal charges against? She wasn't a former president. She's a former U.S. senator. So, again, people see this and they think the double standard is gross. And when are we actually going to have a true equal leveling of justice? That's a legitimate concern a lot of people are sharing out there. What say you? Final call here before the break. Good morning.
It's just too much corruption involved. That's the way I think in our government. It's just getting worse and getting out of hand.
So what do you predict happening here in the months ahead? Do you think Trump's going to have a gag order? Do you think that this is going to be the end of his campaign, or do you think it's just going to bolster his campaign?
There's no telling. Like I said, there's just too much corruption involved.
It's pretty incredible to watch. Appreciate the call. And we'll, of course, be watching this all throughout the day. Keep it here on WMAY, not just with myself till 9 o'clock. You've got Brian Kilmeade. You've got Clay Travis and Buck Sexton. Then the Dana Show, Springfield's Afternoon News with Jim Leach, and then Frank McNeil, and so on all evening. We'll have that coverage. And don't forget about election night as well. All this is happening here while we've got elections going on in Illinois for city, for school board, for library districts, and so on. What